Well, hello everybody. This is Mick Sterling on the Mick Sterling Experience Podcast. Thanks for joining us. This is episode 3 of a show called For Your Consideration. And really the intent of this show is to introduce you to people that I think are interesting and people that motivate me, that move me, that have made an impression in my life. And I would say certainly my next guest on For Your Consideration fits all of those categories to a T. I am blessed to be his friend. I am blessed to watch this talented man perform for as long as I have, and I'm very honored to have my dear friend and incredible, legendary Twin Cities and international drummer, Mr. Bobby Vandell. Bobby, how are you, sir?
Hey, buddy. Wow, that's awful nice stuff, man.
It's good stuff.
I
It's
hope
all
I can
true.
live up to that.
It's all true.
Thank you. Thank you very much,
You're
man.
welcome. Thanks for being on the show and starting this new adventure with me on the Mick Sterling Experience Podcast.
It's not our first adventure together, and
Yes.
it won't be our last.
It won't be our last. That is for sure. Folks, Bobby is, he's been a drummer playing in the Twin Cities and all over the world for decades. He has a very, very distinctive style of drumming that, I used to be a drummer, Bobby, when I, went to high school, and I've told you this story. We were, I knew all the rudiments. I did the Haskell Har, I did the 13 and 17 stroke roll. I could read drum music. I could do all that stuff. But in my head, I just couldn't get past the lessons. I started doing theater, and then right before I was going to start taking set lessons. So when I saw you perform the first time, in my brain I'm going, that's how I heard myself playing drums. If I could play drums, it was like you. And I think your style is so unique in so many ways. And so it's just great to have you on the show to talk about this, to share this with other people, because I think people will be fascinated about where you come from, why your decisions are, why they happen, how you play, and what you think about when you play, things like that.
Yeah. It's interesting because, when I hear you talk about that, it's like I've got people like that. I've got drummers like that, too, that when I see it, I go, man, I wish I could play like that. I didn't spend a lot of time practicing myself on drums, and that's probably my biggest downfall, because what I got off on was playing in a band.
Yeah.
Just plain and simple. That's what I could just do that all day. I could do that for 24 hours, I swear, and I have. But that's what gets me off. And really, it sounds weird, but drums alone kind of, like, I never had the discipline to just practice drums. I did to a certain extent, and sometimes I'll hear something and I'll want to figure it out. But what I really did was played in a band. That's what I started doing when I was 14 years old. I got hired to play in a band, and I just never stopped getting off on that. Yeah. And just last week we did that, the video that we shot, and it was exciting last week to play in that band as it was when I was 14 years old.
Yeah. No, it was an amazing thing, and we're going to talk about many of the things that you've accomplished, multiple things that you've accomplished in your career. You brought up that you were 14 when you started, and you are a St. Cloud boy.
I am. I'm from St. Cloud.
Boy, yeah. And your dear friend, the late great Doug Nelson, was also a St. Cloud boy, and you guys had many adventures in hockey and friendship and stuff. Talk about your relationship with Doug back in those days when you first started, being in bands. Were you and Doug in a band together?
Yeah, well, here's how that happened. I was always starting bands, and I was making equipment. I'm kind of a wannabe carpenter, so I was making speaker cabinets and PAs and stuff, and I needed members to be in my band. That's all I needed. I had everything else. Yeah. I had the PA and amplifiers and drums and keyboards and stuff in my basement. Thank you, Mom and Dad.
Yes.
And I didn't have a bass player at one time, and Doug was like my best friend at that time. We were playing hockey together, and we were doing all such sorts of boy stuff together, what boys do. And he was my best friend. And I said, man, you need to play bass. That's what you need to do now. You need to play bass.
Yeah.
And so he got himself a bass, Gibson SG bass, and he started playing. That's how it happened. I told him he had to. Just out of the blue. I said, I need a bass player. You got to play bass. That's it.
Wow.
And up until that point,
That's an amazing
we were just
story.
listening to music. We were listening to Bob Dylan, the Bob Dylan, his first record, and we were listening to all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
And I was passionate about music, and Doug was good at everything he did.
Yeah.
Everything he did. The same thing happened with hockey. He wasn't playing hockey at the time, and I told him he had to play hockey.
Yeah.
So that he did, and he got really good at that too.
Yeah. Yeah. He was a rather good bass player.
Yeah,
he was a functional bass player, that Doug Nelson.
Doug got really good, man.
He sure did.
And I'll never forget one of my favorite Doug stories is, 4 years after that, I got a call. Of course, no cell phones back then. We got a call at my house from Doug's mom, and she said, I talked to Doug. He wanted me to tell you that he's playing at the Houston Astrodome tonight.
With who?
With Olivia Newton-John.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Who was this new artist that just came from Australia at that time. And I'm like, okay. Doug's.
Holy cow.
It's like I was 8. I guess I was 17, maybe, about 17.
Yeah.
And he was 16, and he was playing at the Houston Astrodome.
Oh, my goodness. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Bobby,
And so the bar was high, my friend.
Yes, no kidding.
Yeah.
Talk about your time. So when did you start performing in bands in the Twin Cities? What age were you when you started that?
A guy named Jerry Steckling called me, a sound man who's from St. Cloud. Really nice guy. He's been working out in San Francisco a lot with. What's the guy that does E.T. and all those movies? He's so famous, I can't remember his name. Yeah. He works out there in his studio. He called me and he said, Bobby, there's a band down here that needs a drummer. I think you should come down and audition for them. And so I did that, and that was 72, maybe 73, something like that. I think I was 19.
Okay.
Right around there. And I came down and I auditioned and I got the gig.
So I'm wondering, as someone that saw you for the first time, I believe I saw you at the first time at Mr. Nibs with the Doug Maynard Band.
Yeah.
I think that's my first exposure of Bobby Vandell's drumming. Was in that room with Steve Raitt mixing it. Still say that's the greatest bar band I've ever seen.
I would not disagree with you. That was among the top bands that I've ever seen, or in a bar.
No, it was astounding. But talk about so you're 19, you go to this bar, you play in this band. What was their reaction to the way that you? I'm assuming you played drums then the way you'd play drums now. I mean, your attack on the kick and the snare and just your unique way of drumming, it had to happen then. What was their reaction when they heard you as opposed to the other drummers they were playing with?
That's a really good question, and it always felt good when I sat in with the band, and it seemed like at that time that I could make any band and I don't mean this egotistically, but it just felt like I had the confidence and the authority in how I felt about playing drums in a band, that any band I sat in would sound better than it did with their drummer. I just felt like I could do that. I felt that confident about how I approached not just drumming, but the art of playing in a band. Like I just kind of felt like I knew what to do, and I did it with a lot of authority.
It'd be interesting to find. I mean, you can't verify this, but let's say you were a school drummer. You know all the things that you envy in other drummers.
Yes.
But that's what you just said, is that your confidence level of if you joined a band or sat in with a band, the band got better because you are all about feel. You are all about vibe and taking, and that's what I think is one of the great things about your drumming, is that you are just completely about vibe.
Yeah, thank you, man. I consider that a huge compliment because, you know, as much as I looked up to people's drummings like Tony Williams and Elvin Jones and contemporary drummers like Vinnie Colaiuta and drummers like that, I look up to them. I also looked up to drummers like Don Henley, and drummers that really didn't have to play much. And really, like Bernard Purdy did not play very much.
No.
He just played the right stuff.
Right. Yes.
And so I kind of, you know, I appreciate those drummers as much as I appreciate, you know, drummers that have a lot of chops. And I am not that guy. But I feel like I can make stuff feel good. You know.
Yeah. No. It's very distinctive what you do. There is,
and it has a lot of it has to do with authority too. But you know, just owning what you do. You know, I'm not afraid to make a mistake. You know, Bobby Schnitzer, who at the time I worked with him, his name was Kinky. He told me a long time ago. He said, you know, if you make a mistake, I want to hear it. You know, because if I can't hear it, it means that you're not playing with authority.
That is a great piece of advice right there. It really is.
Yeah, I want to hear it loud, you know.
Yeah.
And like, you know, Herbie Hancock said that. He said, when I got the gig with Miles, I played a wrong chord on a gig, like a really wrong chord. And I thought, oh my God, you know, I've just lost this gig.
Sure.
And he said, the next thing that I heard in my ear was Miles changing his note so that my chord sounded right.
Wow.
And that you know, that just shows that it's not really there really are no mistakes, you know. I mean, you know, and you just have to if you're going to make a mistake, man, make it. You know.
So let's talk about your exploration. You know, you started in Minneapolis. You're from St. Cloud, you're playing in Minneapolis, and then you have the opportunity. Talk about your time in L.A. What motivated you to go there, and your time there. You know, how was that, and what did you do there?
L.A. Well, first you asked about Minneapolis. There's one story I like to tell about Minneapolis that was kind of a game changer for me, and that is when I got hired by the group Passage.
Yes,
I was working in a bar over in St. Paul. With an organ player, just me and the organ player, and he didn't sing, so I did all the singing too. And Bobby Schnitzer and Creeper Curnow came into that bar to see me because their lead singer in their band had left the band. His name was Doug Maynard, and they were looking for a male lead singer. And they called me the next day and they said, you know, you're a really good drummer, but we were wondering if you wanted to sing in our band. And that was taking Doug Maynard's place in Passage, which was a huge huge thing position for me. It's like now not only am I getting hired by probably the most, you know, that's a musician's band. Passage. It had Rich Dworsky and playing piano, who, you know, played with Garrison Keillor for years, still does.
Yeah.
Bobby and Creeper, who are just monsters. David Miner from Los Angeles playing bass. Gwen Matthews singing.
Yep.
And they wanted me to take Doug Maynard's place in that band and sing. And I mean, that was a shock to me because I had never been a lead singer. And I just thought, you know, this is an opportunity I can't not do.
Sure.
And it just really opened a lot of doors for me. Not only as a singer, but as a drummer, as anything I wanted to do.
Yeah.
But my first night on the gig, Doug Maynard came to the gig and he sat in the front row, right in front of me, and he stared at me.
No pressure.
And it's just like, okay, I've never been a lead singer before. This is my first night, and now I've got the singer I just took the place of.
Wow.
Just staring at me.
Yeah.
And man, when I was done with that set, I was sweating, and I thought, the only thing I can do is walk up to this guy and put my hand out and tell him how much I appreciate him and look up to him, and I did that, and I'll never regret doing that, because he just instantly changed. He was not intimidating.
Yeah.
We were just instantly friends the minute I did that.
That is amazing.
And then ultimately that led to me playing drums in his band.
Yeah.
In the Doug Maynard band. And
wow.
then to get to LA, I just figured that I had done what I wanted to do here.
Sure.
I had played in every band that I wanted to play in this town.
Yep.
I had played with every artist I wanted to play with, except for Prince. I had not gotten on Prince's payroll, but that didn't seem like it was in the cards. I mean, he and I did some playing together a number of times, but I just didn't get on his payroll. But I had played with Alexander O'Neill, I had played with Rocky Robbins, I had played with all the bands I wanted to play in, Lamont Cranston, and all the great bands in town. And I just thought, I need to, you're only young, you're only going to be young once, you're only going to be this age once, you only have the energy to do something like this once or maybe twice,
Yes.
To pick up everything and go to LA and not really know very many people. I was lucky. I had played with Bonnie Raitt when I lived in Minneapolis, and the drummer that was playing with her on other tours that she did. We became friends, and he hooked me up with some connections in LA, and I followed through on those, and I got some work. But boy, that was I basically drove out there with nothing. And I don't regret it. I don't regret it at all.
No. What a great experience.
Yeah, it was really a great experience.
And really uniquely, like you said, an experience for the young.
I really think that's true. You need to be, I think it's best to be young when you do stuff like that,
I moved to St. Louis before the Stud Brothers. I lived there for 3 years, almost 3 years. And that's where I learned, I was playing 28 nights a month, one-nighters. Yeah. Set up, tear down, rehearsal during the day, and that's what you do when you just, you hit the mat.
Yep.
And you go for it.
Yep, you do. And a young person with passion and health can do that.
Yeah.
And I was, man, and LA can be hard. LA being hard, that's an old story. So many people have said that. But, the thing about being a musician in LA is that there's a lot of people parking cars out there that are musicians,
Sure.
And you have to do something to pay your rent.
Yeah.
And you're not going to do it playing music at first, So I got a job working for a company that stored scenery, sets off of television lots, production lots, big Paramount and CBS and all the lots down in Hollywood. All the scenery needed to be moved, and I worked with that company. We moved scenery, and I drove huge flatbed trucks in Los Angeles, and that was a great experience.
Yeah.
But I'd have to get up at 3 a.m. sometimes to do that.
Sure.
And then at night, by 6, 7 o'clock, I was pretty tired, but I had to go out to the China Club and sit in with the band, because that's what I came there to do. I didn't go there to drive flatbed trucks
Right.
in Los Angeles. I went out there to play drums in a band, and so whether I was tired or not, I had to get dressed, look good, drive down to Hollywood, go to the China Club, and sit in with the China Club band. And I did that, and then many times I had to get up the next morning at 4 o'clock to go move scenery again. Bobby, so that's LA.
Yeah. I would think that people, being a drummer, is such a unique perspective. I mean, people in the audience have no idea what the drummer's perspective is on stage. I mean, you're looking at most of the band's asses, for one thing, you know.
Which sometimes is not a bad thing,
yes.
Depending on who's in the band.
Right. There are perks to that sometimes there's not. But I mean, talk about what it feels like, you know, when you were drumming with Doug Maynard, or, you know, with the Stud Brothers, and when there's a band that you just feel this is so right. Talk about what it feels like as, I mean, every drummer, but as you as the drummer of that band, talk about how you feel when it's that good.
Well, you know, a guy named Panama Francis, and if your name's Panama Francis, you got to be a pretty cool cat.
Yeah, you better be. It's a big lead. It's a big lead in for interesting.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool name. You know, I like that name. He said the drummer drives the bus, everyone else rides.
Yeah.
And really, it just comes down to that. There's a lot of ways of saying it, but that's kind of my favorite because it's Panama Francis.
It's Panama Francis.
But that's the one thing you feel when you're in a band like that.
Yeah.
And you better feel like you're driving the bus, or you're not doing your job.
Yes.
So you have a big responsibility from that chair, and that is an amazing perspective to be in, because it's a chair of power, and it's a big responsibility. So you really are driving that band.
Yes.
You own that band. You really own the where it goes, where it feels, how it feels, the dynamics, where it's going to get soft, where it's going to build, how it's going to build, when it's going to get louder. That's all on you. So all you need is musicians that are listening to each other, and we can all, as a group, make that happen. But boy, that chair is, once you're in that chair and you feel that power, and you have an audience, and you're getting that circular thing going where you're putting out the energy, you're feeling it in your soul, it's coming out, and it's going out to the audience and coming back, and you're getting that back and forth thing. I feel like I'm 3 feet off the throne.
Yeah.
You know, it's a high. Like once you feel that high, you want to feel it all the time.
And isn't it interesting how great musicians come around naturally? You know, you know, and I feel like I'm the same way. I have been remarkably blessed in the 40 years that I've been performing. How many amazing musicians have wanted to perform with me? I can't believe it sometimes, and I'm sure. And you've always surrounded yourself with the best, and they've wanted to be around you as well, which the reciprocal thing is just, it's beautiful.
For a long time, that was true. For a long, it felt so good to be in that place.
Yeah. And
I got to say, Mick, I've worked with a lot of great front singers. I've worked huge venues with Alexander O'Neill, 65,000 seaters, 10,000 seaters, 6,000 seaters, small clubs. That guy owns it. Bonnie Raitt, I worked with her. She owns it. I worked with great, great people. But there's a difference between being a singer out front and being a front man, being a front person.
Yes.
Whether you're I don't mean that sexist, if you're a male or a female.
Right.
Being a front person is a different deal. And I've worked with a lot of great singers, a lot of great front singers, but I've never worked with a front man as good as you.
Oh.
You own the stage, and you own the crowd. You own the room. You own the room. And that is a nebulous thing. You can't put your finger on what makes a person do that. Like, you don't learn that. Like you said about my drumming, you don't really learn that. You just feel that.
Yeah.
That's your passion. That's what you do. And I think that you would probably answer that question the same way as a front man. Like that is just what you do, right? I mean,
well, I think the way that we describe our roles are very similar. You said you're driving the bus.
yeah,
And I feel like that as a front person, I try and think of myself what the audience is thinking. Now, when I was living in St. Louis, I wasn't the leader of that band. I didn't write the checks. I didn't schedule the rehearsals. I didn't do all the things I do now as a band leader. But
right.
to that audience, I'm the lead singer. So I must be the leader of the band. That's what they perceive. Why wouldn't they think, why would they think anything different?
Absolutely.
Of course I'm the leader of the band to them. And that was a really interesting lesson for me to go, I have to take control of this.
Yeah.
Because even if I'm not the leader, they're perceiving me as the leader of the band. So whatever I do, I need to be able to direct and make sure that the band feels like that I'm the leader too, even if behind the scenes I'm not.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, that was a good lesson.
And so that's probably a very similar thing with the drummer because I wasn't leading the band. I didn't lead the bands I was in. I wasn't writing the checks either, but I controlled it.
You sure did.
Owned it. I had to own it for the time it was on stage. That was my job.
Yeah.
And I always felt that working with you. I mean, I got to the point with you where I knew what song you were going to call next.
Yeah.
Before you did it.
Yes.
I knew by your body language what you wanted to happen.
Yeah.
After a while, we just became this. We were linked. We were connected.
Yes.
Bobby,
I was thinking today about I don't have any notes. We're just talking. There's no questions. I'm just I'm riffing with you because we've known each other for so long.
Yeah.
But I remember a very distinct conversation we had at the Narrows. We had lunch, and it was after the first Stud Brother reunion show. After not performing together for like 5 years, we hadn't played, and we did that show, and it was magical. It was absolutely magical. And we had lunch about a week later, and I remember you said something to me I thought was so great. You said, as long as we can physically do this, we need to do this.
Yeah.
I thought that was so simply stated, so beautifully, and so much common sense. There's only 10 guys that can make that sound.
Yeah.
And as long as we can physically make that sound, we should do it. I thought that was brilliant.
Thank you, man. It's our responsibility to do that. Life can change in the blink of an eye.
Yes.
Terry Kath, the guitar player from Chicago, was visiting my friend's house in Van Nuys out in Los Angeles, and brought a gun and was alive 1 second, and the next second he was dead.
Yeah.
Life changes. Doug Nelson, alive 1 second, dead the next.
Yes.
We all, Doug Maynard, we when you have the chance to do something with people, you got to do it.
Yeah. No,
because life is so fragile, and we need to share what we do. We just have to.
Yeah. No, I think you're absolutely right, and that's beautiful. That's it really, and when you do it as long as we have it really evolves into a responsibility. We have a job to do. We have this gift, and you need to show it. You need to play drums.
Yeah. I thank you for saying that out from our meeting at the Narrows. I remember that, and I'm glad that meant something to you.
It's huge.
Because it meant something to me too. It means a lot. It's more than just words. It's just we have to do that. We have to continue playing.
Yes.
Do what we do.
You and I have talked about these last few years have been interesting in this town. As anything, any business, things change, tastes change, opportunities of employment changes, You and I both experienced that, where we may not have been performing at the level that we wanted to, and it's frustrating. Talk about what it feels like when it's just it's the mirror thing. It's like, you gotta look. I get home from a gig and I go, that wasn't satisfying to me. Talk about that feeling. How do you get through those difficult times?
That's a good point. I just had one of those not too long ago. I don't recall what it was, but I get to a point where I can't wait to do another gig so that I can forget about that one. I just want to do another gig. If I could do another gig right away, I want. It's like making a mistake in sports or something. It's just like you got to get up and do it right away.
Yes.
If you do something wrong, I think any athlete would tell you the first thing you want to do is you want to get back up and try it again.
Yep.
To learn what you did wrong, to find out maybe you're. And as a musician, maybe you are playing with the wrong people. Maybe that's what it is. But that's always a challenge too. I learned that from working with the Petersons. Ricky Peterson is amazing that way, because every group that he plays in, you can feel all the musicians rise.
Yes.
There are certain musicians that do that, because Ricky plays on a level that makes everyone around him better.
Yes. That is true. Absolutely true.
Yeah, he's one of those guys.
Yeah.
And so, that's who you want to be. If you're playing with cats that maybe aren't making you happy, well, try to make them better.
Yeah.
Just try to make them better.
Yes.
If that's the position you're in, make lemonade out of lemons,
That's right.
So, I don't always do that. I had to learn that. I went through those times where I do a gig with people that were, that weren't up to my standards or whatever, and I'd have an attitude about it. Well, what's that going to get you?
Yeah.
It's
nothing. Tough. It's a tough thing, because you're dealing with pride. You're dealing with, memories of when things were, the way you really wanted it, and that is a difficult thing to swallow when you're in that setting.
Yep, and I've been on the opposite side of that, where I've been, out in Los Angeles, I got put in a position where I was playing with some guys that, I could feel from their energy that they were just kind of putting up with me, like I just wasn't at the level that they were used to.
Interesting.
And they were nice about it and they were cool, but I know that I knew that they weren't. My phone wasn't going to be ringing, and it wasn't with them on the other line.
Boy, and isn't that interesting how that feeling would have to just gnaws away at you. You think about it off stage when you're taking a shower. It's like, oh God, that's a frustrating thing.
It really does gnaw at you, and it's a good thing to go through, man.
Yes.
Because it's reality, and if you don't feel it, if you fool yourself and think, oh man, these cats love me,
Yeah.
Well, maybe that's not always true, and that's going to make you, you got two choices: either go home and act like you're the coolest cat in the world and forget about it, or learn something from it and try to get better. Lucille Ball said that the definition of luck is when preparation meets opportunity.
I like that.
So you got to be ready for something.
Yep.
When the opportunity meets, when you're playing with those guys, you got to be ready for them.
Yeah.
Prepare for that.
I think this is an interesting bridge into that. I want to talk a couple more things about you before we finish today. You've transitioned into quite a broadcaster.
Yeah.
With a very distinctive style, as distinctive as your drumming. You have a unique interpretation and a unique style on 88.5, and the songs that you present, and talk about the evolution of that and what that feels like for you to have that be a new chapter in your performing arsenal.
Great question. Thanks for that. I always felt comfortable talking to crowds on the mic. And many times when I was 14 playing in bands, I was the only one that sang. So I would sing from behind the drums, and then I would continue by talking on the microphone to the crowd. So it came naturally to me. I enjoyed it, and I like to do it in a natural sort of way so that I'm really communicating with the crowd, just like you do. And so radio was pretty natural for me. I got the job when I was about 61, 62 years old.
Okay.
And man, when you get a new career when you're that age, that's a good thing.
That's a very good thing.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
And I've always been really passionate about other musicians. That's a huge passion of mine, to go out and hear other musicians. It always has been. And then I'm just like a sponge. And my eyes are wide open, my ears are wide open. I'm watching everything, I'm listening to everything, and I still am to this day. And so to be able to play to share that music on the radio, the music I love that I'm passionate about, it's like show and tell. It's like being in third or fourth grade and having show and tell, and I want to tell you about this pencil, this and what this pencil means to me. I got this pencil in Florida, and it had an alligator on the end of it, and I lost the alligator, and I'll never sharpen this pencil, and like that's your show and tell thing, like that's what this music is to me.
Yeah.
That I play. When I play Chick Corea, when I play Joni Mitchell, when I play Ray Charles, when I play all these phenomenal artists, I want to know about them. So I do know things about them just from being so passionate all my life about them. But like to know that when you play Pat Martino, that Pat Martino became the world's greatest guitar player, and he had an aneurysm, and he completely forgot how to play guitar. He had to reteach himself how to play guitar.
Wow.
And he became one of the world's greatest guitar players a second time.
Holy cow.
Not once. He didn't just do it once, he did it twice.
Well, isn't it interesting?
It's like that, just like they're just so interesting to me,
Isn't it interesting the dual purpose of what you're doing to me? You're playing music that influenced you, but you're also exposing and educating new listeners to all kinds of new music that are going onto the station. And that's, for someone that's been doing it as long as you have, that has to feel, musically professorial, I would say.
It's a good way to put it. It's a blessing. It really is to be able, because it's my passion. Music and musicians and bands, that's my passion.
Yeah.
And so I love sharing it with people. I love finding out things about the artists that I didn't know, and then sharing that with people. I always thought when I started doing radio, I didn't want to be one of those FM guys that just says, well, that was recorded in 1954, in May of 1954 at Paramount Studios on 4th Street in New York. It's just like, dude, who cares?
Right. I can use the liner notes too,
Yeah, right. It's like, I want to know something about the artist. I want to know something interesting about the artist, because they have fascinating musicians. We have fascinating lives. Our lives are really interesting, I think. And I love to know that Ray Charles, tried to fly a plane once, and that he cleared the snow, as a joke. He cleared the frost on the window because he could, I like to know that he tried to drive a car. Yeah. I like to know that the Velvet Fog,
Mel
vocalist, Mel, that he wrote a Christmas song at a pool in Van Nuys when it was 90 degrees. Chestnuts roasting on an open fire.
Yeah.
He wrote that that was written at a pool. Little stuff like that. That's interesting to me because it's all passion.
We, the Mick Sterling Experience podcast is, I think the unique nature of it is that I'm going to have contributing shows that come in. It's not just me being involved with it. I want other voices to come in and other shows to be under this umbrella of this podcast, because I think I don't know all these things, and there are people that know things, and I know that it would be interesting. And you and I have talked about you contributing some shows on the Mick Sterling Experience podcast about really the things that you're talking about. An interview with somebody that moved you, that you think is important, and to get a little more in depth and a little more history on that artist. Talk about what you're thinking about the content of that show and just how you feel about it.
Well, I think it's a really great idea that you've got. And I was thinking, I'll just give you an idea of one of the shows that I could do for a long time. One of the things I've always thought of about blues is that, blues, as we all know, came from the South a long time ago, and it was black. All the artists were basically black that created the blues.
Sure.
And if you move the clock forward from that time and you take all those guys and some women too, and you move the clock forward, there's been all these white artists that have literally made careers on their music,
Yes.
So you take a song like Hound Dog that was actually written by Lieber Stoller, and they wrote it specifically for a woman named Big Mama Thornton.
Right.
And so when you listen to Big Mama Thornton's version of Hound Dog, and then you move ahead to a handsome white boy out of Memphis doing it in 1956, it's two different songs.
Sure.
It's two different attitudes.
Different takes. That's right.
It's two different things.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of that. Bands like the Rolling Stones, to a certain point Led Zeppelin, the Allman Brothers, they all made careers on the black people's music from the 20s, 30s, 40s. So that was an idea that I had for your podcast, is to just do one show on that where you play, where I'm going to be playing some cuts of, I want to hear Big Mama Thornton.
Sure.
I want to hear her Hound Dog go into Elvis Presley's Hound Dog.
Right.
And when you listen to that stuff and you listen to the Allman Brothers versus the people that wrote that stuff, you learn a lot.
I think it's going to be really interesting, your audience, to have them hear you in a longer format. I think that's going to be, they love listening to you, but you just don't have a lot of time.
Yeah.
So I think in this format, whether it's a half an hour show or an hour show, for people to get more of you with your stories and your interpretations on these, whatever the content is, I think people will find that interesting.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I find that one specific thing. That's one of the things that I've learned from doing my blues show, is that whenever I do two tunes like that and compare them and talk about the artists, I just think, man, I could do this for hours.
Yeah.
Just this subject, because listening to the Stones do something that was written by Chuck Berry or whoever back in the day. It's great. It's a great subject.
No, I think it's going to be very fascinating, and well, listen, my friend, it has been an honor.
Oh, this is so great, man.
I think,
just as usual, you and I could talk forever, man.
I know.
We go over, to the restaurant, to the Monte Carlo there.
Yep.
And sit down and you and I could talk for hours. It's a pleasure. Thank you for asking me, brother.
Oh, you got it. And you are my brother, and I'm honored to know you and honored to call you my friend, and I'm blessed to have been performing with you as long as I have and will continue to be.
I feel the same, Mick. You've given me a big opportunity to express myself on the drums in a great band and work with a great front man like you. And I was there when Tucker and Michaela were just babies and kids, and we had them out on the boat. And those are great memories, and you're like family to me, man.
I know, as you are, my brother. Bobby Vandell, thank you so much for being on the Mick Sterling Experience podcast, man. I love you, and I can't wait to see what you contribute to this podcast.
Thank you, brother. I can't wait to see what you and I have together in our future as we go on here, man.
And we certainly will. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you, my brother.
Love you. Well, there's the gushy love fest between me and Bobby Vandell on the Mick Sterling Experience podcast, show called For Your Consideration. Thanks for watching. We're going to be doing many more shows under this moniker of For Your Consideration, and other shows as well from contributing content like Bobby's going to be doing, and other great shows. So thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Keep us in your minds, the Mick Sterling Experience podcast. We'll see you soon.